Mabuhay! Good morning to everyone. Today we're going to discuss about the Hofstedes cultural dimension, a cultural comparison of Philippines versus Japan. Culture is often the source of conflict and opportunity. Cultural differences are nuisance at best and often a disaster, like Professor Kurt Hofstede. Culture is one of the differences between Japan and Philippines, both of which are Asian countries. Since Japan is a first world country, their culture explains why it is highly reserved, whereas the Philippines has been conquered by various countries, which explain why we have adopted different cultures. The country scores on the measure are relative, in that we are all human and simultaneously we are all unique. In other words, culture can only be used meaningfully by comparison. The model consists of the following dimensions, with the country scores of Philippines and Japan. First, our distant difference of PPI, Japan has a score of 54, while Philippines has a high score of 1. Second, individualism versus collectivism or IPA. Japan has a 46 score, while Philippines has a 36. Third, masculinity versus femininity or mass. Japan has a high score of 9, but while Philippines has a 64. Fourth, uncertainty avoidance index or UEI. Japan has a high score of 92, while Philippines has a low score of 41. Fifth, long-term orientation versus short-term normative orientation or LTO. Japan has a score of 88, while Philippines has a low score of 37. And last, for the indulgence versus restraint or IPR, Japan and Philippines has a same score of 40. For each dimension of the Philippines versus Japan will be explained further later. The cultural dimension represents independent preferences for one state of a person or another that distinguish countries, rather than individuals from each other. Hindi mababago ang pagkat sa kultura, ngunit dapat natin tunuwain at ikawan ito.
Ohayo gozaimasu! Mabuhay! I am Bedrejo, BS Hospitality Management 3JA. So for today, I'll just give you a brief background about the power distance. So power distance, this dimension deals with the fact that all individuals in the society are not equal. So it expresses the attitude of the cultures towards these inequalities among us. So power distance is defined as the extent to which the less powerful members of the institutions and organizations within a country expect and accept that power is distributed unequally. Now, let's move forward to the power distance of the two countries, namely Japan and the Philippines. So for the Japan, did you know that intermediate score of 54? Japan is a borderline hierarchical society. Yes, Japanese are always conscious of their hierarchical position in any social settings and act accordingly. So, however, it is not as hierarchical as most of the other Asian cultures. Some foreigners experience Japan as extremely hierarchical because of their business experience of painstakingly slow decision-making process. All the decisions must be confirmed by each hierarchical layer and finally by the top management in Tokyo. So paradoxically, the exact example of the slow decision-making process shows that in the Japanese society, there are no top guy who can take decisions like in more hierarchical societies. Another example is no high power distance in that Japan has always been a meritocratic society.
Meritocracy societies is everyone with skill and imagination may aspire to reach the higher level.
There's a strong notion in the Japanese education system that everybody is born equal and anyone can get ahead and become anything if he Yes, it is still he. Work hard enough. And that's it for the Japan power distance. For the Philippines, at the score of 94, the Philippines is hierarchical society. This means that people accept a hierarchical order in which everybody has a place and which needs to further justification. Hierarchy on the organization is seen as reflecting inherent inequality. Centralizations is popular.
Subordinates expect to be told what to do, and the ideal boss is a benevolent. So that's it for the power distance of two countries.
Konnichiwa! Watashi wa Hana desu! Magandang buhay to our tourists! So for the second cultural dimension, I would like to share with you how the Philippines and Japan differ from each other in terms of individualism. I would like to tell you first what individualism is. Individualism is the degree of interdependence a society maintains among its members. It has to do with whether people's self-image is defined in terms of I or we. In individualist societies, people are supposed to look after themselves and their direct family only. In collectivist societies, people belong to in-groups that take care of them in exchange for loyalty. First, let's see how the Philippines' spectrum of individualism and collectivism works in their society. The Philippines, with a score of 32, is considered a collectivistic society. This is manifest in a close long-term commitment to the member group, be that a family, extended family, or extended relationships. Loyalty in a collectivistic culture is paramount and overrides most other societal rules and regulations. The society fosters strong relationships where everyone takes responsibility for fellow members of their group. The collectivism in the Philippines shows from the family to clans, to tribes, to regional affiliations, and religion. And yes, family life is very important to the Filipinos. Meanwhile, Japan scores 46 on individualism dimension. Certainly, Japanese society shows many of the characteristics of a collectivistic society, such as putting harmony of group above the expression of individual opinions, and people have a strong sense of shame for losing face. It is widely known that Japan is group-oriented culture. Group solidarity is valued over individualism. There is strength in the group, as the famous Japanese saying implies, a single arrow is easily broken, but not 10 in a bundle. This cultural mindset impacts certain behaviors, such as how praise is received. Always remember that the team concept is very important for the Japanese and strive to give public credit to the entire group. The group mentality would be an example for the Japanese. Japan's well-known propensity is for putting the group before the self and by extension following orders from one's superiors. In more ordinary circumstances, this tends to manifest itself most noticeably in the workplace. Part of the reason workers in Japan do so much overtime is that it is traditionally seen as bad form to leave the office before your co-workers, and especially before your boss. Even if you are done with your individual task, it is considered polite to remain in the workplace, either to lend a hand to your fellow employees, or, as is sometimes the case, to busy yourself until everyone is ready to go home. And now that you know the Philippines and Japan's individualism dimension, let us now head to the next cultural dimension to be guided by Miss Glor.
Mabuhay! I am Herlene Grace Glor from BSHM 3JA, and I am here to discuss the cultural diversity when it comes to masculinity between Philippines and Japan. As we can see at the graph, where Japan has a score of 95, where it is deemed as one of the most masculine societies in the world, and the Philippines has a score of 64. A high score on this dimension indicates that the society will be driven by competition, achievement, and success, with success being defined by the winner who doesn't fail, a value system that starts in school and continues throughout organizational life. In the Philippines, workers are expected to be decisive and assertive. The emphasis on equity, competition, and performance. And conflicts are resolved by fighting them out, while in Japan, they are not seen as assertive and competitive individual behaviors, which we often associate with masculine culture, because they tend to have severe competition between groups, which is introduced at a very young age. Moving on with the differences, seeing that the Philippines has a lower masculinity score than Japan, it is evident confident that there are a lot more women in their workplace, while in Japan, they will continue to lack women power in workplaces in the present and in the next following years, even though they have been taking different measures to bring more women in their workplaces. As per these similarities, women in both countries have a history of leaving work after marriage to take care of their families. And in Japan, this culture is called Kotobuki Taisha, which means marriage work leave. Both countries also still suffer stereotype on women in workplaces, especially in Japan, where workplaces is not really suitable for women. As an example, it is also hard for women to climb up the corporate ladders with their masculine norm of hard and long working hours. That is it for the masculinity of Philippines versus Japanese.
Now, I will discuss the uncertainty avoidance to Japan compared to the Philippines. High versus low uncertainty avoidance. High level of uncertainty avoidance are less comfortable with uncertainty and attempt through rules, regulations, laws, controls, and behavioral norms to reduce or manage uncertainty and ambiguity. It is worth noting that high uncertainty avoidance culture attempt to manage unstructured, ambiguous situation not only through formal, while low uncertainty avoidance are comfortable and relaxed in the face of ambiguity and unstructured situation. This culture do not rely as heavily on rule-oriented mechanism for uncertainty mitigations, and it is also typically more tolerant of risk-taking and more open to change. Japan compared to the Philippines. Japan's score is 92. It is one of the most high uncertainty avoiding country on earth. This is often attributed to the fact that Japan is constantly threatened by natural disaster from earthquake, tsunamis, typhoon to volcanic eruptions. Under these circumstances, Japanese learn to prepare themselves for any uncertain situation. This goes not only for the emergency plan and precaution for sudden natural disaster, but also for every other aspect of society. You could say that in Japan, anything you do is prescribed for maximum predictability. For example, in a business, manager asks for all the detailed facts and figures before taking any decision. This high need for uncertain avoidance is one of the reasons why change are so difficult to realize in Japan. Philippines has a score of 44 and low preference for avoiding uncertainty when compared to Japan. Low uncertainty avoidance society continue to have a more flexible attitude where departure from the norms is more open to tolerance and practice is valued above principles.
Good day everyone. Let's talk about the long-term orientation of Japan and the Philippines. Let's have the definition of long-term orientation. So long-term orientation describes how every society has to maintain some links with its own past while dealing with the challenges of the present and future. Long-term orientation focus on the future's rewards, infrastructure built to last, delayed gratification appreciated, cultural changes happen slowly. So Japan has higher long-term orientation than the Philippines. Japan's scores is 88, while the Philippines is 27. So the Philippines is more normative while Japan is pragmatic. Hindi din naman nakakapagtaka na Japan has large gap than the Philippines when it comes to long-term orientation because they are focused in the future and what would happen in the future. Their product is quality, also their infrastructure is firm. Also, they give importance to education because they believe in education there will be a better future. We all know that Japan is one of the richest, fast-growing economy and modern country all over the world. While the Philippines have low long-term orientation, although they have great respect and tradition, but they have a small proximity to save for the future, and they focus on achieving quick results. That's why some of the infrastructure are not good and firm, and also the product is not that good than Japan. Also, they are not investing in education. Although they have the saying that ang kabataan ang pag-asa ng bayan, but they are not prioritizing education. That's why the future of the Philippines has no certainty.
Indulgence versus restraint. Relative weak control is called the indulgence and strong control is called restraint culture. Japan and Philippines score are the same, which is 42, and this shown that these two countries have culture of restraint, which means that they have a tendency to cynicism and pessimism, or they are more inclined on negative thoughts. Restrained culture see leisure and vacation as not important or priority. Halimbawa, kagaya dito sa atin sa Pilipinas, kapag mag-purchase ka or magbe-vacation para sa sarili mo, dapat meron ka munang valid reason, or dapat bago ka maggaganon, dapat meron ka munang na-accomplish na isang bagay para masabi mo na deserve mo yon. Kasi kadalasan dito sa atin, kapag meron tayong gusto, tinatanong muna natin lagi kung deserve ba natin yung bagay na yun. In restrained culture, respecting people is very important. In Japan, respect is one of the most important values, especially respect for the elders. Gaya din dito sa Pilipinas, yung paggamit ng po and opo and yung pagmamano. In Japan, respect also reflects people who have higher status or power. Yung pagbow sa kanila, it also indicates as greetings, and kung gaano katagal or yung baba ng kanilang pagbow, nakadepende yun sa kung sino yung kanilang ginigreet, yung power and status ng taong yun. Restrained culture also have strict social norms. Japan and Philippines is both conservative when it comes to clothing. Although dito sa Pilipinas, hindi na siya ganun kahigpit gaya noong unang panahon, hindi pa rin tayo kasing free kagaya ng mga indulgent country. So when it comes to clothing, kasi marami pa rin naghihigpit at may marami pa din na hindi tanggap yung mga liberated na pananamit, especially dun sa mga matatanda. So in conclusion, restrained societies such as Philippines and Japan have more work ethic and have a stricter moral discipline and social norms. They are way more conservative and also have introverted attributes, and they suppress gratification of needs by social norms.